Hi everyone, welcome back to All Things Academic with Aerika, aka Professor Loyd. On this channel, we talk about academic lifestyle and planning for passion and productivity. In this video, I'm going to be talking about tips for writing. So I like to think of writing as the currency, or publications as the currency for academia, but it can also be one of the most painful parts of our job. So in this video, I'm going to share 6 tips for writing that often help me get my writing moving and have really helped me increase my productivity and get those writing projects out. So as we're getting closer to summer, we might have a little bit more time to move those writing projects along. I'm going to be sharing 6 tips to help us in our writing. Tip number 1 is to make time for writing and put it on your schedule. Schedule it like you would any other meeting. And when you schedule that time for writing, make sure that you protect that time like you would any other meeting. Like you would if you were teaching a class and your class was scheduled for, or taking a class and your class was scheduled for a specific time. Make sure that you protect that time. In my schedule, if I don't plan it, if I don't put it on my calendar, it's usually the first thing to go. If you're the type of person who's self-motivated and you don't need to schedule time for writing, then by all means, keep doing the thing that you're doing. But if you're like most of us and you struggle with balancing lots of different responsibilities in your life and in your job, and you find that writing is the thing that you're willing to sacrifice first, then you want to put writing, schedule time for writing on your calendar. And I do block out specific time for writing. I will not budge unless it's an emergency meeting that absolutely, or an emergency task or an emergency thing that absolutely has to happen. If writing is a priority for you, you want to make sure that you make time for it in your schedule and that you put it on your schedule like you would any other task. Tip number 2 is mind mapping, and I'll post a link in the description in the comments below for one example of mind mapping. So sometimes when I'm stuck on a project, or if I'm starting a new project, the best way to generate ideas is for me to draw the concept in the middle and then try to connect all of the ideas and thoughts in a map. So I tend to be a pretty visual writer, at least at the beginning of a project. And mind mapping helps me get those ideas that are swimming around in my mind out on paper so that I can see them, I can analyze them, I can move things around, and I can start to think about the relationships and associations between the different concepts. So mind mapping is a really useful tip that can often help you get your writing moving again, or help you start a new writing project. Tip number 3 is to start with an outline. And I like to think of outlines as roadmaps for where our paper is going. If you're writing empirical papers, which tend to be extremely formulaic and specific, so you have an introduction, a method, a results, a discussion, and references, and then you have figures, it's often pretty clear what goes in those sections. But if it's a conceptual paper, I like to start with an outline, because an outline will tell us where we're going to go. And oftentimes I will draft out, what are the main points of this paper? What are the 5 components? What are the 5 sections that I want this paper to cover? Each section, I like to bullet out what are the main ideas of that section. So rather than just starting writing a paper and just free-flowing like I did when I was an undergraduate student, these days in my writing, I like to start with an outline to tell myself, where would I like this paper to go? You can leave room for the paper to change and to add and modify sections, but if you start with an outline, it gives you a direction of where this paper is going. Tip number 4 is to maximize your writing style, and this is a really important tip. So when I was a graduate student, my advisor told me a really great story about how he was writing a chapter or a paper with a colleague. They decided that they were going to meet and they were going to write together for a scheduled amount of time. And they sat in the room together, and my advisor said that he just started writing frantically, scratching, writing, crossing things out, writing. And his colleague just sat there thinking for maybe the first 3 hours of their writing session. But his colleague just sat there and didn't do anything. And he told us that he wondered why he wasn't doing anything. But then in that last hour, his colleague wrote his entire section without writing or scratching or frantically, putting things on paper and crossing them out and editing. He just kind of free flow wrote his section in that one concise hour. And that was a really great example for me to think about different writing styles, and it prompted me to think about what is my writing style. So my writing style is probably a hybrid of the two, but lends more towards my advisor's writing style in that it's much easier for me to just dump words on paper rather than to think about it in my mind and then write the piece. So some people are great with putting the pieces together in their minds and then putting it to paper, and other people do better by just getting ideas out on paper and just kind of fleshing it out in that way. So you want to know what your writing style is. So first you want to get to know what's my style. Since that time, what I've also learned is that I tend to do my best writing first thing in the morning. I'm usually more clear with writing actually before the sun even comes up. So sometimes I do my best writing literally just rolling out of bed and getting in front of my computer and getting those ideas out on paper because my mind tends to be the most clear. And not that that time is always available for writing, but I've noticed over the years, and now I've been doing this over a decade, that my best writing is done first thing in the morning. Some colleagues that I know, they do their best writing in the middle of the night. And I know for me, I do not do my best writing in the afternoon or in the middle of the night. So that's not to say that you will never write, that you will always be writing at your most optimal time, but the idea is that you want to maximize your writing, know your writing style, and maximize the amount of time that you can spend in those times when you're your most productive. Tip number 5 is to think of writing as a process. So when I was new in my career, I used to think that during my writing time, I had to get as many words out on the paper as possible. I thought that writing just had to be me at my computer, just writing. And if I wasn't writing, putting words to paper in my writing time, that it was an unsuccessful or unproductive writing block or writing time, and that I would get really down on myself and thinking that I didn't use that time effectively. Now, the way that I think about writing is in terms of a process that includes lots of things, not just words to paper. Writing includes the reading, the thinking, the putting words to paper, the editing, the revising, the references. All of those components are parts of writing. I tried to shift my thinking away from thinking about writing as I'm not being successful because I'm not putting words on paper to actually, I spend a lot of time thinking about projects before I actually put words to paper sometimes. Some writing projects, I'll spend 3 weeks thinking and then write the paper in a weekend. And other papers, I will spend, months and months and months crafting that analysis and crafting that conceptualization of the paper. Post in the comments below how long it actually takes you to write papers. I would be curious to see how long it takes other folks to write papers. And then if you'd like for me to make a video about how long it actually takes me to write a paper, post that in the comments below and I will make a video about it. Number 6 is just to start. Just start writing. So temporarily, if you are able to, if you can, just try temporarily suspending all judgment. So I know for me, sometimes I get stuck in a writing project because I'm thinking about what other people will think about this work. And I start anticipating what I think the reviewers are going to say about this paper. And while that can be helpful because you do want to kind of preempt some of the feedback you may get, many times I have no idea what the reviewers are going to say about this work. So I try to temporarily suspend all judgment that may come from yourself, thinking about what your advisor, if you're a graduate student, thinking about what your advisor may think about the project, thinking about what you think the reviewers are gonna think about this writing project or this manuscript or this book. Temporarily try suspending all judgment about this project. And many times I am often my own worst critic in thinking about my work. You have lots of time to think about that once the paper's under review. So it's not incredibly productive to get bogged down with what you think other people are gonna think about the project before you even submit it. You can deal with that when the reviews come in or when you've given the paper to your advisor. And I think with our experiences, a lot of times I don't wanna undermine or negate the effect that people's feedback can have on our self-esteem, on the way that we think about our work. But in this moment, just try temporarily suspending all judgment or suspending what you think people might think about this project. Try for 30 minutes. If getting rid of it, for an extended period of time seems too cognitively taxing or emotionally taxing, try setting a timer for 30 minutes and say to yourself, I'm not going to think about what other people think about this project. I'm not going to try to anticipate what I think people are going to think. I'm just going to write for 30 minutes and give yourself permission just to write. And one thing I like to tell myself is that 3 messy sentences are better than no sentences, because then I have something to work with. So if I can just get a few messy sentences written, if I can just get something on paper, it's better than staring at a blank page. And many times in many writing projects, once I've actually started putting words to paper, it becomes a little bit easier. So sometimes I just need to start. So I just need to force myself to just start writing. And then many times, not every time, but many times, I will get into a flow where then the ideas just kind of flow after that. So just start, just put the words on paper. So I hope I've said something of value today. If you like this content, if you want to help this channel grow, if you'd like to help me, if you just like my head wrap, if you just like listening to me talk about academic topics, give this video a like. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that you know when I post more videos. Consider sharing with a friend or sharing with a colleague or a student. If there's anything you'd like for me to cover, post that in the comments below or send me an email, and I'll do my best to address all of your comments. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.